Monkey D. Luffy is the main protagonist of One Piece. You can't have a series as long as One Piece without people rooting for the main character, and Luffy certainly is extremely popular. Across all character popularity polls for One Piece, he is consistently number one. In the show and manga, Mihawk refers to Luffy as having the most dangerous ability in the world, charisma. He can make anyone admire him and become his ally. But why exactly is Luffy so popular? Here, I'll examine Luffy as a character and his role in One Piece. So why do people like Luffy so much and are so willing to follow him? Of course, part of it is because he's so goofy, positive, and simple-minded, much like Goku from the Dragon Ball series. Everyone likes the idea of a simple, kind person having all of these amazing powers. Similarly, people like the idea of watching someone who they consider to be a good person getting stronger and stronger and reaching their goal. However, I think there's an element to Luffy that makes both fans of his character and other characters in the universe admire Luffy even more. The fact that he is tied to no social order, no traditions, and has no limits. He represents a childlike wonder, understanding, and naivety that everyone can relate to, and that every adult lost at some point. It's no secret that Luffy is essentially a child in an adult's body. He's absolutely amazed by everything he sees, he yearns to travel to far-off lands, and he wants nothing more than a life free from responsibility and filled with adventure. In fact, he only wants to be Pirate King because, to quote Luffy himself, "It's just that the person with the most freedom on the sea is the Pirate King." It's no coincidence that Luffy's birthday is National Children's Day. Luffy only cares about basically three things: eating, his family, and having a good time. And this is part of why Luffy is so appealing. We can all relate to that time in our life when we only dreamed of adventure, our only worries were about what we would do with all our free time, and everything was neatly categorized into right and wrong. Luffy never lost any of that, he never lost any of his childlike wonderment, and that's why I think many people love to see Luffy take on the world. We envy him, and he appeals to something pure and untouchable that everyone had at one point and everybody can relate to. Of course, this stretches even further. See what I did there? Anyone who's been around a child knows that they tell it like it is, no matter who you are, and they don't really care much for authority or tradition. A kid isn't afraid to say, "Your hair looks stupid," or they hate when their parents say they can't watch a show just because their parents said so, or they have no idea why we have to make our beds every morning. Luffy sort of carries these same ideals. He doesn't care if you're the son of a great lord, he'll straight up punch you in the face if you do something he doesn't like. If Luffy gets locked up in Impel Down, or told that he's a criminal and he has no chance to escape this prison, he doesn't care. He'll break out of there and he'll do it, even though it's never been done before. Nami's being tied to a debt that she had to a giant shark man. Luffy goes in and punches the shark man in the stupid shark face, and Nami is free to be a pirate with him. What's the pattern here? Luffy represents that primal urge in all of us to defy authority, to tell it like it is, and to do something that everybody says is impossible. Luffy is a driving force of freedom. He's an embodiment of the human spirit, and a small part of every human being. Luffy is not bound to any one person or thing except his family and his natural urges. It's also no mistake that Luffy's usually wearing the color red, a color which connotes energy, war, danger, strength, power, determination, as well as passion, desire, and love. Luffy is completely a creature of single-minded determination. Once he puts his mind to something, he can't be stopped, and he only has a one-track mind. Unlike most people, Luffy doesn't have any ulterior motives. When he loves something, he loves someone unconditionally, and when he hates somebody unconditionally. He uses absolutely no strategy in his fights, and he didn't even have anything in terms of formal training until after the time skip. He relies on passion, punching harder, kicking harder, and outworking his opponents through sheer will alone. He will take an incredible amount of punishment and keep moving forward. Luffy is a force of pure energy. He loves his crewmates and his friends unconditionally, and he is insanely stubborn, as we see when he refuses to move an inch from one spot until his crewmate agrees to return to the crew. Luffy's power also exemplifies both his childlike demeanor and his role as a character as a bringer of change and revolution in the world of One Piece. Luffy's ability to change his body in multiple ways represents childhood in two important ways. Firstly, it represents unlimited potential. A child can become anything one day, but until then, until they learn who they are, what they want to do, and what they care about, they are untouched clay. They're an X factor. A child represents limitless possibilities. Similarly, Luffy's ability to stretch and make his body do basically anything represents the limitless possibilities of a child. Luffy's power will not end because he will always keep finding new creative ways to kick ass and solve problems, to the point where he'll completely throw off his enemies with his wacky attacks. My second point is that Luffy's flexibility represents his ability to be creative, again, like a child. There's a reason why Lego is so popular among children, because children are creative as hell. They aren't bound by things like limits, rules, or inside-the-box thinking. Like a child, Luffy uses all sorts of creative attacks that adds to the theme of his character as a child in an adult's body. Finally, this idea of flexibility builds into the idea that Luffy is a bringer of revolution and a symbol of freedom. He isn't bound by structure, rigid social class, or tradition. He is flexible, he can work around these things, and he always finds a way to get around something. To conclude, I see Luffy as Oda saying, what if you had an adult with the heart of a child, ideals of a child, but the power to back it up? That is what sprouted Luffy. He's the embodiment of freedom, simplicity, energy, and determination. The revolutionary who spurns authority if it isn't deserved, ignores tradition if it's illogical, and who represents a little bit of every single one of us. Is Oda suggesting that we should all be like Luffy? I don't really think so. Luffy is pretty stupid and reckless and tactless. However, I think that if we all thought about the world a little bit more like Luffy, if we paid less attention to senseless traditions, if we challenged authority when it oppressed, and fought to do what we wanted to do with our life, then the world would probably be a better place. And this is what Luffy teaches characters like Nami, Robin, and pretty much every person or entire kingdom or social structure that he comes across. Luffy is a part of all of us, particularly a longing for innocence, freedom, and the creative powers of childhood. And I really believe that this is why he's so popular and he's so cherished as a character. Thanks for watching.